The other day I just wanted to take a break from all this virus talk. I was watching old clips from my home city, Stockholm. This is Stockholm 1930. Just a few years before the Spanish flu. What am I saying? I want to stay away from talking about diseases for a while. This is nice. Men vad fan. Hello, Sweden here. According to some people, Sweden is practicing something called herd immunity.
Sweden did that. The herd. They call it the herd.
No, we are not. Linde, Sweden's Minister of Foreign Affairs, said this in an interview with CNN.
And as you just heard Donald Trump saying that we have a strategy of herd immunity to respond to COVID-19, and that's absolutely false. That is not the Swedish strategy.
It doesn't seem to matter what we say, though.
Their strategy is to protect the vulnerable while allowing the virus to spread through healthy people so they can develop antibodies.
Everyone from PBS.
This is designed to create so-called herd immunity.
Donald Trump.
The herd. They call it the herd.
To Brainy Beaver.
Sweden's doing the other idea.
Is saying factually incorrect things about how Sweden is handling the COVID-19 crisis.
I mean, Jesus, you're like 4 or 5 times more likely to die in Sweden from COVID than you are in Canada, let's say.
And in Canada, you are almost 3 times more likely to die than you would be in Brazil, for instance. The amount of deaths in Brazil and Canada are almost the same, and Brazil has almost 6 times the population of Canada. And Brazil is run by a nutcase that urges its population to ignore all recommendations from his own health ministry. And he just fired his own popular health minister. Does this mean that Brazil is better at social distancing and have a better strategy than Canada? No, of course not. Canada is doing a much better job and are much better prepared. The countries are just in different phases, and as we have learned recently, all countries are reporting deaths differently. Sweden and Belgium, for instance, are very transparent with reporting all confirmed COVID-19 deaths, independently of where they died. Others are only reporting deaths if they happened in hospitals. New York recently changed their way of reporting and caused USA to report the biggest daily death update in the world. They say that Sweden is suffering.
And Sweden is suffering greatly. Sweden's suffering greatly.
Actually, we are suffering like many other countries.
It is true, Sweden is suffering. We are trying to save as many lives as possible, just like everyone else. The biggest difference between Sweden and most other countries is probably that the government trusts scientists to make their recommendations. This is the Swedish strategy.
The Swedish antivirus campaign is being led not by the country's Prime Minister, but by Anders Tegnell, an epidemiologist with experience of fighting Ebola in Africa.
People over 70 are recommended to stay at home at all times.
We also have more than 90% of the people who are more than 70 years old who stay at home and follow their recommendation.
And retirement homes are closed to visitors. Everyone who can are recommended to work from home. If you are unemployed, you get more money from the government, or if you work and are sick, you get money from the government from day one so that you can stay home without worrying about the economy. If you are an employer in trouble due to the COVID-19 crisis, you can let your employees go down to 20% and ask the government to pay for the other 8%. School children from secondary school and up are attending classes via the internet. The public have been recommended to refrain from international, domestic and local travels. Air traffic has reduced with 97%. Recently, Easter trips within Sweden decreased with over 90%.
We also think that if we have taken a bigger lockdown, then it would have been more difficult to people to do that on a long-term basis. And we think we still have a long term to go.
King Carl Gustaf hinted at disapproval of government tactics as he urged Swedes to cancel the traditional annual getaway to country cabins.
PBS tries to make it so that the King of Sweden doesn't like the government's approach. For some reason.
En del av detta kommer inte vara.
Some of this will not be possible this Easter.
Det måste vi acceptera.
We have to accept this. We have to rethink and adjust to staying at home.
In fact, the king is just repeating exactly what the government has been saying for weeks. Stay at home, don't travel. To sum it up, no, there is no herd immunity strategy in Sweden. Our death toll is obviously not good. It is still much lower than the European countries with much stricter rules. In New York alone, the death rate in just one day surpasses the total amount of deaths that Sweden has had in 30 days. This is certainly not a competition, but it's good to put things in perspective. It's hard to say if one method is better than the other. Each country are in different stages of the pandemic. Each country has their own culture and their own methods, and we might not like those methods. I'm not sure if I succeeded in leveling out the exaggerated news reporting. Tell me in the comments how I did. Also, I'm sorry for not making a video for a long while. The virus has caused some big issues for me and my family, and it has been tough focusing on YouTube. The company I'm working for is also closing down its business, which makes things difficult. I'm planning to release more videos from my new home studio we built over the Easter weekend. I'm not sure how I will be involving Mr. Pinion at the moment, but I'll figure it out. You'll never know what we are going to do next.
But you can rest assured that it's going to be interesting.
See you next time.
I'm very friendly with the leadership in Sweden. They're a very disciplined country to start off with, but they did take a different. The herd approach, okay? Herd.
Their death rate is double that. In fact, if you do the math, it's more like quadruple or like centuplic, times.
If we did the herd, if we went with the herd, as they say.
So really, if you look at it, they've got a third of the population. Let's just give them a third. It's actually less than a third, but they've got a third of the population in Canada. They've got half as many detected infections and twice as many deaths.
And if we did follow that approach, I think we might have 2 million people dead.